Well, hello, Sober Psychology family. Welcome back to the show. I'm Michael, your guide through the labyrinth of the human psyche. And today we're stepping into a territory that's as universal as breathing and twice as messy. We're talking about grieving. Yeah, I know, gloom and doom. Now, before you hit the pause button or swipe away, thinking, oh, great, another 40 minutes of gloom, let me hook you with this. Grief isn't just about losing someone, it's about losing anything that matters, including the version of yourself that addiction stole. And here's the kicker, you can't outrun it. You can try. I've attempted it myself. I've seen people attempt it with whiskey, Netflix, gym memberships, whatever. But it's like trying to outplace your own shadow. It's coming with you one way or the other. So today, we're cracking open the psychology of grief. We'll pull from the heavy hitters like Kübler-Ross, Freud, and even some brain science because I'm a nerd like that. And since this is sober psychology, we'll tie it straight into addiction and recovery. So expect some humor too, because if we can't laugh at the absurdity of being a human, we're missing the point. So let's dive right in. Welcome to the show where we break down the mental health stigma, navigate sobriety with humor, and prove that it's okay to laugh while you heal. Let's get real, let's get honest, and maybe a little weird. Growth is messy, but you don't have to do it alone. This is Sober Psychology. I feel like I need a really cool intro or something because I have 4 cameras going at all times. Like, look, we got the multicam. If you're on YouTube and you're seeing this, I put in some work to try and get cameras going everywhere. So I'll just say hey to everybody. Hello to you there. Hello to you there. Hello to you there. And hello to you there. If you're only listening on audio, I guess you're missing out. You're probably not, but I feel like you are. I digress. All right, let's start with the basics. What is grief? If you ask the average person, they're going to say that it's crying over a lost one, and that's fair enough, right? But psychologically, it's a much broader and deeper meaning than that. And it's a lot less polite, honestly. That's what I kept learning as I was looking into all of this. Grief is the mind's response to loss, any loss, period, any loss whatsoever. A person, a pet, a job, a dream, or, here's where it gets real for us, the illusion of control that you had before sobriety kicked you in the teeth. It's not just sadness. It's a chaotic stew of emotions, thoughts, and even physical pain that says, hey, something's gone and you're not okay with it. Now, let's lean on Elizabeth Kübler-Ross. She gave us the famous 5 stages of grief, which are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. This was published in On Death and Dying back in 1969, I believe, and it's become the go-to framework. But here's the dirty secret. It's not a straight line. People think all the time with her stages, they think, oh, I'll just check off denial, and then I'll punch anger in the face, and then I'll waltz right on into acceptance. No, it's a pinball machine. You're bouncing between stages, sometimes all in one day, sometimes stuck in bargaining for months like you're haggling with God over a used car. You take denial, it's not just this isn't happening, it's the brain's emergency brake saying, let's process this. Let's not process this just yet. I've got laundry to do, And then studies like those from the American Psychological Association show that denial buys you time when the loss is too big to swallow. But here's where it intersects with addiction. Denial's an old friend to the addict, very old friend. I don't have a problem, you say all the time, while empty bottles pile up like a modern art installation. In recovery, grieving starts with when denial actually cracks. When you realize that you've lost to the chaos. It's a tough one. It's a very deeply rooted, it's something that we don't pay enough attention to. That denial is very difficult. If you've dealt with someone like this in relationships, family, friends, whatever, you're trying to get them to see something that they're not willing to see right off the bat. And their whole life can be falling apart. Everything around them is just in this state of chaos and burning everything down, yet they're still going to maintain the notion that everything's okay. That's their brain in a denial phase. There's so much chaos. They've lost something, whether it be their former self, whether it be letting go of something that they knew was hurting them, that they don't want to let go of yet, maybe emotionally, which that's another deeply rooted part. Maybe we need to have another episode for this, but as an alcoholic, when I did get to the point where I knew that I was burning my life down, I had something wrong with me, I told myself, and again, alcohol is not the problem, I am the problem. But I told myself all of these different ways of denial, of saying, I just have to drink less. Or, you could read this all throughout the big book. It's called A Peculiar Mental Twist, where I'm just going to have wine instead of hard liquor. Maybe for those of you who do pills, things like that, you could say, I'm just gonna smoke the devil's lettuce instead of doing the pills that I've been doing. And you convince yourself that it's going to be different. Or, for me, I think I even struggled with the thinking that I'm going to take some time away from it. I'm just going to sober up here for this 90 days, and then I'll have control over it when I come back. I'm just in this constant state of denial when you're doing that. It's the same thing when you have some level of loss. You're not willing to face your grief yet, so you stay in this pattern of denial. It's a sneaky one too, because you don't see it. That's the hard part about denial. It takes someone else calling you out for it. It takes someone that is loving and trusting and cares about you enough to tell you the hard truth and hit you in the teeth with it. Denial can put you in that state of never growing. It almost forces you into this victim mentality, in a sense, where everything else is wrong, you're good, just because your brain's not allowing you to start to process this, right? Now, anger is a riot. It's the stage where you're mad at everything. The universe, your ex, the guy who cut you off in traffic. Freud called grief a work. In Mourning and Melancholia, he said that it's the psyche wrestling to let go of what's gone, right? Anger is the psyche wrestling to let go of what's gone. Anger's part of that work. It's raw, it's loud, it's honest. I've had friends in recovery tell me that I'm furious at myself for wrestling or for wasting years. And that's grief talking. You're not mad at the substance, you're mad at the life that it took, right? Which is, it's kind of weird. Like, we can definitely tear this down, stair step into a lot of different categories here. But research from the Journal of Substance Abuse Treatment shows this anger can fuel relapse if you don't channel it. But if you do, it's rocket fuel for change. Anger is probably the one that I struggle with the most, if I'm being honest. Anger, again, just like denial, just like most of these stages of grief, right? If you're not willing to process it, puts you in this state of victim mentality. And as we learn through the 12 steps, as we learn just through life in general, as you learn through any type of psychology, digging into yourself, when you stay in that victim mentality, you never grow. The victim never grows in any stage, right? You could be 12 years old, you could be 80 years old. If you're going to remain the victim, which part of this grief is putting you in the victim mentality, you're never going to grow. And anger is a shield. I think guys handle this, handle anger differently. Obviously, that's kind of our go-to emotion. It's easier for me to be mad at something. It's easier for me to put a hole through a wall out of anger than it is for me to wrestle with the stirred up, messy emotions. Society has programmed us this way in a sense too. It's generational, right? Our grandparents or great-grandparents, they were of the generation where, you pick yourself up by your bootstraps. Don't ever show emotion like that. Don't ever, don't show sadness. That's weak. All this kind of stuff. But anger, it makes men feel macho, We have a higher level of testosterone too. So we have a higher propensity for anger than most people or than women. And when we stay in this stage of anger, we think that we're processing something. We think that we're figuring something out. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I've had a hard time with this because I think guys are wired. I know I'm this way with the people who are closest to me in my life. Very rarely do we get to a point where we have a problem that we can't resolve. But if we did, if we got to that point, we could step out to the front yard, we could swing and knock each other out, come to, shake hands and hug it out, and like we're good. You know, guys are very simple in that manner. Anger is a very rudimentary way of handling difficult things. However, when anger is taking over, when it's controlling you, it's grief in some form or fashion. It's some level of grief, and you're not processing it appropriately. Now, I'm not one of these, maybe I'm going to be a terrible psychologist, I don't know, but I'm not one of these people who thinks that you should just get rid of anger completely. I don't think you should really get rid of any emotion completely. You have it for a reason, right? I think that anger is actually really good. Again, I talked about the guy who owned and ran the rehab that I went to last episode, and he talked about this too. Anger is a fuel, right? Anger is a very, very powerful emotion. If I'm angry at a situation, let's say that I didn't do something as well as I wanted to do, and I get angry about that, and I'm not a loose cannon in a sense, I'm not letting that anger tell me that I'm less than, I'm not letting that anger make me hurt other people or get me to this stage where I'm wanting to burn the world down. But if that anger is now channeled into this really, really powerful rocket fuel, and I'm able to accomplish the goal the next go round because I'm jazzing myself up, that's a very powerful place to be. Where anger becomes a problem is when it becomes very harmful, not only to you, but to those around you. So don't hear me say that we're trying to get rid of anger in grief. We're not. It's just part of the grief process that we have to learn to work through in order to use it as fodder for the cannon, if you will, right? Anyways, then there's the bargaining. And this one's really sneaky. This is the one that says, like, if I'd only quit sooner, I'd still have my job. If I pray hard enough, maybe the cravings stop. It's magical thinking and a desperate bid to rewrite the past. Neuroscientifically, it's your prefrontal cortex grasping for control when the amygdala is screaming, we're doomed, we're screwed, that's it, it's over. In addiction, bargaining shows up in pre-recovery a lot. I'll just have one more drink and then I'll stop. And spoiler alert, that does not work. But we try and tell ourselves that. We bargain all the time. We do this too in our relationship with God, right? Like, God, if you'll just do this for me, I promise I'll be the perfect Christian. And that's not how it works. God's not a genie in a bottle. You don't bargain with God, just like you don't bargain with your grief. And again, all of the things that I'm saying, I've gone through these stages. I've been a part of. I've been on the bad end of it. I've been on the awful end of this spectrum, and then I've been on the healthier end of the spectrum. I've seen both, and I know that only one of them works out the way that you want them to work out, right? But bargaining is, again, going back to it, like that state of denial that I was in of thinking, I don't have to get rid of alcohol forever, right? I'll just get through this program. I'll have some time in sobriety, and then I'll just. That's it. I'll be good after that. I can have a couple of drinks every now and then. Doesn't work out that way. Okay. But the bargaining, it's trying to find the easier, softer way is basically what you're doing. Instead of getting into the nitty gritty, instead of dealing with the difficult work, you're trying to find a way where you can have your cake and eat it too. Right. And that's again, I think that is one of those. I think it ties in a lot. Bargaining ties in a lot with denial of thinking I can figure this out. It's us trying to take our self-will back, ultimately, is what it is, instead of surrendering, which if you'll look at our episode from last week, compliance versus surrender, instead of surrendering to the idea of, I have a problem, whether it be an addiction to a substance, whether it be, an addiction to Netflix or a gym membership or whatever, instead of ignoring my problems, I'm going to jump right into it. Bargaining keeps you in that state of of trying to comply. I'm just going to do what I need to do so I could still have what I want, what you think that you want, which is your escape, right? And then you have depression. Depression hits harder, in my opinion. It's the stage where the weight finally lands, right? You're not denying, you're not raging, and you're not negotiating. You're just empty. Studies like those from the National Institute of Mental Health link grief's depressive phase to actual changes in brain chemistry. Dopamine dips, serotonin takes a vacation, and then suddenly you're staring at the wall wondering why you even bother. For someone in recovery, this is absolutely brutal. You've lost the crutch, alcohol, pills, whatever. And now you're grieving like an old friend, or you're grieving it like it's an old friend. I've seen it, I've experienced it, that people 6 months sober, sobbing, not because they miss the high, but because they miss the numbness, I guess. I've been there. I remember 2 months after I finished the program, which now that puts me at 5 months of sobriety. And something as small as like a simple rejection from a girl that I was talking to, just a simple rejection. We didn't even know each other. Just a simple, like, not interested or, whatever it was. And I just I was out on the table. I was having my quiet time. My sponsor walks up and I just start bawling my eyes out. And I remember telling him over and over again, I just don't want to feel this way. There's a flurry of emotions that come with it. And when you get into this depressive state, it's so tough. I know a lot of people, I think the majority of us, if you're listening to this, the majority of us have some level of depression. And that's a difficult one. It's just a dark cloud that looms. It's over everything. It's a tough spot to be in. You're not angry. You're not in denial. You're not trying to bargain. You're just in this state of nothingness. And that's a very tough spot to be in. We've talked about this before, and maybe we need to do a full episode on depression. That's probably a good idea. There are quick ways that you can begin to help with that, alleviate. Going outside, just walk. You don't have to run. You don't have to train for a marathon. You don't have to be that kind of person, but just getting outside and having sunlight hit your skin. Experiencing nature in that way. Just walk. I've been trying to push myself to do 10,000 steps a day. Sounds like a lot, but when you have a baby that is confined to a stroller and the only way to get them to settle down is to have them in motion, you figure out how to get 10,000 steps in really fast. But exercise, sweat, exerting yourself. These are quick ways to start to work through your depression. I've been doing this too a lot. I'll put my phone down and I just pick up a book. All right. You don't even have to have a lot of intention behind learning what you're reading. Just read. Praying constantly. Depression is a scary one, and it's very, very tricky, and I'm with you. I understand what it's like, especially if you're an addict alcoholic. Our one safety, what we thought was our one safety, what we thought was our one comfort, was the escape, which is the alcohol. It's the pills. It's the ability to just disappear, to ignore what was going on in our heads. And then when that gets taken away from you, when that's no longer the viable option, it is very difficult for addicts, alcoholics to deal with depression in this way. I've lost way too many friends who have given in to depression through unaliving themselves. I have struggled with it myself. We've talked about this before too. I'm not suicidal in the sense that I entertain it, but I do have those thoughts that pop up, and that's a scary reality for me. It's something that I'm gonna have to keep in check and keep monitoring, because what happens one day if I give in to those? And that's kind of where depression is, right? If you stay in this pattern of depression for so long, everything is gloom and doom, eventually that's just how you're gonna see the world. And it's tough. It is very difficult. We'll do an episode on that. I'll go ahead and put that down, and maybe we'll do an episode next week or week after. But here's the pivot. Acceptance. I know. Roll your eyes all you want. Now, it's not, I'm fine now. It's not a Hollywood ending. It's, this happened and I'm still here. That's the acceptance that you're looking for, right? It's not going to boop you on the head and everything's good. That's not what I'm saying. The acceptance is just getting to the point of saying, okay, this happened. I'm still here. What are we going to do about it now? Kübler-Ross said that acceptance is where you integrate the loss into your story. It's very powerful. In recovery, it's grieving the old you, the one who could hide in a bottle, and accepting the new you, scars and all. The 12-step folks get this. Step 1, admitting powerlessness, is grief's handshake with acceptance. It's not easy, I promise you. Studies show that this shift correlates with lower relapse rates. And why? Because you stop running. Please go back and look at the compliance versus surrender episode that we did last week. And we talk about this, we highlight this. If all you're doing is complying to something, you're never going to be fully relieved. You're never going to be released from that. You're never going to be free. If you surrender to the idea of it, I am powerless. I cannot drink again. I cannot do it. It does not matter what the situation is, what the circumstances are. I'm not gonna, twist my mind on figuring out if they're gonna come out with a magic pill I'm gonna be able to take and then I don't get drunk anymore. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Surrender to the idea that the acceptance. This happened. Okay. This is what it is. I have a very hard time with this too. I'm 35 years old, about to be 36. My first child was born at the end of last year. I have a track record. I have a felony attached to my name. I can't leave the county legally. I had lost everything at the age of 31 and had to start over. Money, everything. And I have a hard time getting to this point of like, well, if I would have just done this, then I'd be in a much better position now. But what I'm doing is not letting myself get to that point of acceptance. I'm in an incredible place. I have a home, I have a family. I'm able to continue to pursue school, to get to a point where in 5 years, my world's gonna look completely different. And the acceptance part of that is saying, I am an alcoholic. I have a problem. And that's not just the bottle that I pick up, it's the mindset. It's the mental, right? The acceptance is tough to get to because it's almost like waving the white flag. That's how we view it. It's not waving the white flag. You're finally just letting go and you're able to some people may see it as a free fall. And what happens in a free fall? You eventually splat on the ground. Others will see it as flying, right? I've gotten to a point where I'm able to see it as flying. It's not pretty and it's very, very difficult, but being able to have that level of acceptance allows me to fly, right? Or as the wise poet Chris Stapleton once said, falling feels like flying until you hit the ground. That's way too accurate sometimes. I'm worried, but no, the acceptance is just letting go. Watch how it works out. I do this a lot in my relationship with God, right? Like I'm constantly trying to take back my self-will. I'm constantly trying to tell God what I need. I got it figured out. I just need this from you, God. I don't know what I need. I know what I want. I don't know what I need. And when I get to a point of acceptance of like, okay, you are the creator of everything. You are omniscient. You are omnipotent. You are everything. And if I let go, then I can guarantee you that it's going to work out better than if I had my hands on every part of it, right? And it's very, very difficult. Go back and look at our episode from last week. Maybe I'll put a pin or however you do it. I don't know. There'll be a tag up here somewhere. Go click on that episode, check it out. It'll also be at the very end of the video, but it's worth it, right? So now let's lighten up before we all need the tissue box, I guess. But grief is absurd. We've addressed that. 1 minute you're crying over a lost dog, and then the next you're yelling at a sock because it has a hole in it. It's like your brain's throwing a tantrum and a pity party all at the same time. And in recovery, picture this. You're grieving the bar stool that knew your name. It's just such a weird spot to be in. The thing that was destroying you, you just are grieving it, right? It's ridiculous, but it's real. I was the guy who mourned his favorite whiskey glass. Yes, We have been through this. I don't, it's not something I'm proud to admit, but here we are. I mourned my favorite whiskey glass. It was my Excalibur until I got to the point where I'm like, look, Michael, you're not King Arthur, and that glass wasn't pulling you out of a stone. It was sinking you. It's a very weird spot to be in where we're grieving the things that hurt us. But we get there, especially, in recovery. That's a consistent theme, right? So let's zoom out for a second. Grief isn't just emotional, it's also physical. Okay. I told y'all we're going to do some brain stuff here. Let's talk about this. Brain scans, like those from UCLA's grief studies, show the anterior cingulate cortex lights up during loss. It's the same area that's tied to physical pain. Okay. That's why your chest aches when you grieve. When you go through that breakup and that heartbreak, like you feel like you can't breathe at all. That's why, right there. Anterior cingulate cortex. It's the exact same receptor that lights up when you're in physical pain. It also lights up when you're grieving. Okay, it's tied, right? In addiction, this hits double. You're grieving the substance and the life that it wrecked. It's a weird spot to be in. Detox isn't just withdrawal, it's mourning. There's a whole lot going on. Your body is screaming, where's my fix? While your mind is whispering, where's my purpose? We had dudes coming in off the street that were strung out like you would not believe. People that were just tweaking like a squirrel on cocaine, and it's a very weird spot to be in, to watch this whole detox period, right? They'll be gung-ho, okay, I need help, I need this fix. And I mean, within a 24, 48 hour period, their brain is already trying to kill them and make it look like an accident, trying to convince them, I just need to go get one more fix. I just need to go get one more drink. I just need to get back out there one more time. It's them trying to escape the pain that's coming, right? Or the pain that's already there, because it's not just the physical withdrawals. It's this overall mourning. I was lucky, and I say that I'm lucky because I detoxed in a jail for 3 days or for 3 nights and 4 days or whatever it was. And I was shaking, I was sweating, I was cramping, every muscle in my body was cramping. I remember my fingertips hurting so badly that I did not want to open my hands. I felt that like opening my hands all the way was somehow or another pulling my fingertips towards the middle, and it was going to hurt even more. And this is real. This grief is tied into not only the physical, but the mental and emotional, right? Quickly get to this point that, it's like, where is my fix? What is my purpose? Why am I doing this? I would much rather just go back to the bottle than I would address everything that's going on, right? And here's where the psychology gets real messy. Not everyone grieves the same, and that's the tough part. And that's also the beautiful part about human beings. John Bowlby's, Bowlby, I think, John Bowlby's attachment theory, he wrote Loss, Sadness, and Depression. And he says, how you bond shapes how you mourn, right? This is kind of a weird one, but you could look it up yourself. Secure folks might navigate grief with resilience. Anxious types cling to the loss like a lifeline. Avoidance, they're going to pretend that it's not happening until it explodes. And in recovery, this matters a lot. If you're avoidant, you might dodge grief with a new vice. Hello, gambling or overeating. If you're anxious, you might obsess over what you've lost. If you're secure, you've got a shot at facing it head on. Very tough to get to that level of security, right? But the anxiousness, all the other things, all the other ways of dealing with it, you start to replace. And you don't even realize it sometimes, but you'll start to replace one vice with another. And then you end up at the exact same spot, right? So how does this play out in sobriety? Addiction's a thief. It steals time, it steals relationships, it steals health. And recovery's the slow process of tallying the losses, basically. You grieve the years that you can't get back. You grieve the trust that you broke. I've had friends in recovery say, Michael, I feel like I'm burying my past self. And you are. It's essentially what you're doing. But here's the gold. Grief, when you let it breathe, is a teacher. It strips you absolutely bare. Sure. But it also points you towards meaning. We've talked about this before. Being sober going through that grief, being sober-minded, sober physically and mentally, it allows me to fall forward. Instead of falling backwards and seeing things as a loss or a setback, I'm fortunate enough to be able to say, okay, I screwed up or I failed here. Now I can figure out where I need to go, how to navigate this. Now, that's a tough spot to be in, but that's part of that acceptance. That's part of getting to that spot of saying, okay, I'm going to be able to move forward with all this, right? And that's the surrender aspect to a lot of this, right? Viktor Frankl, he wrote Man's Search for Meaning. We talked about this, I think, last week, maybe 2 weeks ago. He is my absolute go-to in this genre here. In a concentration camp, he grieved everything: family, freedom, and safety. And he found purpose in the wreckage. You know how much strength that takes? Concentration camp, lost everything, but yet finds purpose in that wreckage. Viktor Frankl, please go look up this man. Recovery is kind of like that. You grieve the chaos, but you build something new. And studies from the Journal of Clinical Psychology back this. Meaning making after loss reduces despair. Meaning making after loss reduces despair. In sobriety, it's grieving the bottle, but finding the man or woman that you were meant to be. Okay? All right, let's try one more laugh before we land this plane. But grief's got a weird sidekick, which is guilt. Okay, have you ever noticed that? Anytime you have grief, you're grieving over a breakup, and then suddenly you're like, oh, I should have texted back faster. Or how many of you, if you lose someone that's close to you, I've done this with every single person that I have lost since being sober. These guys that go back and relapse, and then they end up dying of fentanyl or something like that, or off themselves. However, you are constantly in this state of like, oh my gosh, I should have done more, right? In recovery, it's I should have quit before I lost the house, or it's like grief hired a lawyer to sue your conscience. But here's the trick. Just laugh at it, right? Tell the guilt. We've talked about the whole naming of emotions, and we've talked about facing it, almost treat it like it's a real person, right? You're probably going to be seen as a schizophrenic, whatever. Just do you, right? But if you tell guilt, buddy, you're late to the party. The statute of limitations ran out. It's not a cure, but it loosens the grip a little bit, right? It starts to name it and tame it. We've talked about this a lot. So where does this leave us all? Grief is not a problem to solve. It's a process to live. Grief is not a problem to solve. It's a process to live. It's the chaos that you can't outrun, but you can walk through it. And in addiction, it's the shadow that you face when the high fades. Very tough spot to be, scary spot to be in. In recovery, it's the bridge to something real. Kübler-Ross, Freud, Frankl, they all point to this. Grief hurts because it matters. Grief matters, okay? And if you're listening, whether you're sober, struggling, or somewhere in between, you've got losses worth grieving. That's not weakness. That's proof that you are alive. That's proof that you have a heartbeat. You have losses that are worth grieving. So grieve. Do it the healthy way. Do it the right way. Start to learn. Or if you do it the wrong way, learn from it. Get better, right? Here's your homework. Where is grief hiding in your story? Don't bury it. Name it. Maybe it's a person. Maybe it's a past you. And if you're in recovery, know this. Grieving's part of the deal. Sorry, it's just the way it is. But it's not the end. You're not just surviving. You're rebuilding. It's very important. It's going to take time, and it's going to be worth it in the end. I promise you that. So anyways, that's where we're at. That's all I got for you. As always, thank you guys so much for being here. Thanks for being a part of this. I love the conversations that we're starting to have. So reach out if you are one of the YouTube warriors. Then feel free to comment. Hit that thumbs up button. Go ahead. Be a part of this. If you're on audio, thank you for tuning in. Thanks for downloading. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of it. If you know anybody who's struggling with grief, if you know anybody that this could help, if this helped you at all, share it. Spread it around. Talk about it. Let's open up the conversation. But thank you guys for being here. As always, like, follow, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Keep your head up. Keep your heart open. Go help somebody. Love you guys. We'll catch you next time.